I've been preparing for this one for quite some time, yeah. This is a massive change. WordPress 5.0 is supposed to be dropping in, well, a week. It's not happening in a week, but all this that we're talking about, this is what's coming within the next month or so. So it's a good time to have this made up. All right, so let's see. So thanks to our sponsors, SpaceCubed, who provide this fantastic environment for us, and to WP Engine, who I've got a host with them, fantastic WordPress hosting, particularly if you're doing client stuff as well. They take a lot of the hard work out for you. So it's handy that they're a sponsor as well, because I like them.
Yeah.
All right. So
and they came, just throwing this out there, they actually sent someone over from Brisbane to the first WordPress meetup to make sure that everything ran okay. So I think, yeah, big shout out to them. They've been fantastic in getting us off the ground.
Yeah, they have. So. All right, so what is Gutenberg? So it replaces the WordPress editor, the one that we've been familiar with, the one that has been in place for the last 12 years. It's going away permanently. And this is not a opt-in thing. It's not like Jetpack where they put it on top. This is going to be rolled out in the core of WordPress. Everyone is going to have it. There is a way temporarily that you'll be able to bypass it. So there's a plugin that you can install called the Classic Editor. I'll show you that later in the demo. But without that, do not upgrade to WordPress 5.0 until you've tested your website. Install, back it up and put it onto a development host. Make sure that you've tested everything working perfectly before you roll it out onto your live sites that you like. So with WordPress, a lot of the times we have automatic updates, but they're only for I'm not sure if they're the minor or just the bug fix ones. So there's 3 numbers in every version. The last one is automatically updates. The middle one, I can't remember if it automatically updates, but when it gets to WordPress 5.0, you're not going to be automatically updated to that unless you've got some script running that for some reason updates it. But yeah, it's not going to be forced. I would, before it rolls out, I would make sure that I've installed the Classic Editor. Even if you don't activate it, just have it there, so peace of mind. So the good thing about this is that it is open source. So that means that we as the WordPress community are actually the ones doing the development. So I've got a couple of commits, the technical term for contributions, so official contributions to it. There's one particularly annoying one with the publish button in the current plugin. Fix that one. So that's a good visible one. But because it's open source, if you have a problem with it, with the plugin, make sure you speak up, make sure you get involved in it. If you've got some design or development skills, even better. So the new concept that it brings in, instead of it just being basically a document like we've had forever, it's changing to a concept called blocks. So every paragraph is a block, every image, every embed, every form, everything becomes a block. And the best way to understand blocks is, I assume most people here are familiar with Facebook, and if not, then Twitter. On each of those status updates is a block. So you would have seen maybe on any news sites they embed a tweet. Well, that's because that tweet is a block, and so it can be referenced externally. There's a whole lot of things that can be done with that specific block. So instead of WordPress just being built on PHP with a bit of JavaScript thrown in, Gutenberg now moves to React, which is a type of JavaScript framework. If you're not a developer, don't worry. If you are and you're not up with React, get up with React because all the plugins that you're going to program, all the themes and everything, any custom coding is going to need some familiarity with React and also JSX. But if you've got React, then JSX is a small step up. All right. So why? Why are they doing this to us? Or rather, why are we doing this to us? So I had some difficulty trying to memorize this one, so I'm going to read. Thought long and hard about why exactly that we were doing it, and I came across a fantastic article that kind of gave some of it. It's the idea of the innovator's dilemma. So a small innovative company gets big and stops innovating to keep their customers happy. I mean, WordPress runs 30% of all websites on the internet. Now, eventually some new, small, innovative company comes along and takes over their market share. Think about Blockbuster. I'm not sure if they're the same company in Australia and America, but this is specifically the American one. They had all the market share and could have easily started posting DVDs and streaming the way that Netflix did. But they weren't prepared to innovate, and now they virtually don't exist. They lost to Netflix, who, funny story, in 2000, Netflix CEO came to the Blockbuster CEO and said, give us $50 million and you can have Netflix. The Blockbuster CEO obviously turned him down, and Netflix revenue last year was, I think, $3.6 billion. Revenue. The other one, obviously, everyone's familiar with Kodak and digital cameras. You get comfortable in the space, you don't innovate, someone comes along, does things better, changes the game, and you get left behind. So that's what's going on with WordPress right now. Nearly 30% of the websites on the internet run WordPress. So they've essentially become the Blockbuster of websites. But now new players are starting to make inroads. So you might have seen Wix, Medium, what are the others? Squarespace, Weebly, those sort of ones. But it's more than that. With Gutenberg, we're getting ahead of the curve for the next wave of technology. So we've got big data, artificial intelligence, VR, hyper-personalization, all that stuff is coming on almost here. And we as a WordPress community are adapting to position us for what is to come. And it is going to be a painful transition. There will be a lot more work for all of us to do, particularly this year, because this is all happening this year. Whether we like it or not, within the next month, maybe two, who knows. There's been huge strides made just in the last week. Massive problems that people had have now been solved just in the last week. So who knows, maybe they're on track, probably not, but give it a month, two at most, before all this comes down. It's going to be a lot of work for all of us, but with more work comes more opportunity to serve the community and all that good stuff. So why core? Why put it right into WordPress and not into the plugin? Well, that goes into the whole idea of innovating WordPress itself. This isn't just the editor. Right now, it's just the editor, but the next stage is the customizer, the theme customizer, and then later the third stage, this editor, Gutenberg experience, is going to be rolled out on themes as well. So all your themes are going to be built using this React system. So that's not going to be happening until next year at some point. But the idea is to turn everything in WordPress into blocks. And the idea is to separate the content itself from the wrapper around it. So we've got a bit of that now, but not really. And Matt Mullenweg, the founder of WordPress, he spoke about how he keeps talking about WordPress as being WYSIWYG, as in what you see is what you get, but we all know it's not. There's page builders that do far better than WordPress, and I'm guessing a lot of us use these page builders, Beaver Builder, Elementor and all that. Those aren't going away, but everything's changing, which is fun. It's also unifying the meta boxes, the shortcodes, the widgets, the menus, the custom post types. Everything is kind of going to be all like, there's been bits and pieces built on top of each other, duct taped together. With this new system, the idea is for them all to be unified. So there's been some concerns about the meta boxes. I don't know if you've come across meta boxes, but if you use a post, then usually at the bottom underneath the editor, there's a whole lot of extra information. So if you use an SEO plugin like Yoast, that information is stored there. That's a meta box. There's lots of other uses for them, but yeah, there was a point where they weren't going to let us have meta boxes, and Juice, the guy behind Yoast, said, we either have meta boxes or you don't get Yoast anymore, and shutting up shop. And so the Gutenberg core team went, okay, you can have meta boxes. So thanks, Yoast. All right, new features. I said everything's a block and separates the content from the format. I'm getting ahead of myself, obviously. In my testing, there has been a speed increase of around 25%, which is always nice. That isn't a particularly comprehensive test. That was more with the current state and comparing the classic editor to the Gutenberg editor. It just ran 25% faster on Pingdom and GTmetrix. Oh, one of my favorite things is that you can now edit HTML on a single block. Instead, so say you had just a little bit of code that you wanted to put into your page, before you had to switch the whole thing to the HTML editor and either leave it like that, which is a terrible experience if you've got clients, you've got to tell them don't touch that page or lock them out from it, or you have to switch it back to the visual editor and hope it doesn't strip out your tags. Well, with this, you can just insert a HTML block and just write it in there. Or if you've already got the HTML block, you can, if you've already got it in a text block and you'll realize you need some code around it, simple click of the button, converts it to a HTML block, and makes life a lot easier. I don't know whether maybe I'm the only one that does that, but I was quite excited about that. It also allows you to paste Markdown. So there's been a big focus on compatibility with pasting with other services. So, for example, Google Docs, if you copy and paste a Google Doc into it, it pastes perfectly. If you paste a Word document in, also pastes perfectly. They touted that as a big change, but went back into the classic editor, and that handled the Word doc fine. So I don't know what was going on with that. But it didn't handle the Markdown, and it didn't handle the Google Doc so well. So there's been a lot more focus on making things compatible with what else is out there that people are using. So if you've never used Markdown and you don't use Markdown, don't worry about it. If you do, this is a major time saver. It also has better HTML5 compatibility, which, point out, that feature there could actually break your theme, as in not break the theme, but break how it looks. If the theme is coded in like the CSS is done in a particular way. So keep an eye on that if you've got some custom coding, custom CSS or something on your design. Have a look through all your pages, because that might actually break things. Not break, but just look a bit weird. It has a new concept called shareable blocks, which is going to be great for the advertisers. So, as in the advertisers in the room, so you set up a block and it can have particular text, maybe call to action, button, that sort of thing. And then once you set it to a shareable, shareable, I don't know, whatever, shared something. Once you edit it in one place, it updates everywhere else on the website that you've used that particular block. And it's really difficult for you to confuse the two when you're putting them in. It's pretty obvious that it's a shared block, but that's a handy feature that before we were having to do with shortcodes. advertising and stuff. So, and as I've said, ready for virtual reality. So there's a talk that I've linked to at the end of this presentation. Highly recommend going and seeing it. It talks more about the virtual reality and how people, they might want to put this particular, like the content here and have images over here when they're looking through their virtual reality goggles. That he goes into it far better than I can do justice to it, but that's something that is pretty cool that's coming. People at the moment, everyone is operating on a flat screen for the most part. You've got your laptop, you've got your tablet, you've got your phone, desktop. That's pretty much it. Like, it's all just a rectangular piece of glass. But what's coming, and what is already here but is becoming more widely used, is this breaking up into different spaces, is not just a square or a rectangle. So that's going to be cool, getting ahead of that. All right, so what did we break? And I say we because I'm talking all of us, because this is our plugin, whether we like it or not. So if the plugin that you're using makes changes to the TinyMCE editor, the default editor, it is broken. If it uses a meta box, well, I did the slides, that particular slide 2 days ago. Now it only sort of breaks some of them, but it doesn't break all of them. That's how rapidly this thing is changing. I'll get into that other thing in a second. Some page builders are broken at the moment. There is a workaround for them, but page builders that require you to go to edit the page and then trigger it, which is all of them except Beaver Builder, you're gonna have to do a workaround to use the classical editor so that you can then trigger that page builder. So it's a good time to get off Visual Composer.
Happened a year ago now.
Shortcodes inside a paragraph. Now you can only use shortcodes within a shortcode block, and from what I've seen, it will automatically force you into that block. So having text wrapping around a shortcode, if you're doing that maybe for an image or something, that's going to be problematic. So there's a particular block, shortcode block, that you can put your shortcode in. If you're not using shortcodes, no worries, but they're used quite widely, so keep an eye on that.
The Reusable editor, is it going to sort of auto-format some of the content into blocks by default, or is it
automatically? Yeah.
Big block?
Yeah. So the question was, is the new editor going to automatically format into blocks? And yes, it does. If you write, I don't know, in a document or something, copy it and then paste it in, it automatically changes all those paragraphs into paragraph blocks. So there is some benefit. No, it's good, and it's improving rapidly as well. So many of the plugins are going to need updating. There was a service that was running is it going to be compatible with Gutenberg? I haven't linked to it because it seems to, everyone's using it, and so it's groaning under the weight and oftentimes isn't working. So of that, most of the plugins currently in the WordPress repository were not compatible. But that was mainly because of the meta boxes, so right now, who knows? But again, test it before you update, it'll be fine. You're also going to, if you're a developer, you're also going to need to upgrade your developer skills. Unless you're already familiar with React and JSX, yeah, it's a big step up, for me at least. So, it's important to get involved. We as a WordPress community, that's all of us, we're all building this. So if you don't like something, now's the time to speak up before it rolls out into WordPress 5. People spoke up against a bunch of different things like meta boxes, and that got fixed. It's going to be a lot more difficult to get approval for these fixes once it's rolled out to all however many billions of websites, because once that huge leap forward has been taken, they're not going to want to mess around too much with it, more fixing things that we broke. So there's places that you can go to get involved with it, and I think that's on the next slide. If you don't have the time or skills to get involved, but you're like, I really hate this particular aspect, not the whole thing. If you hate the whole thing, sorry. But if you don't have the time or the skills to make the changes, just send me an email. You'll have all the slides, so you have that. Resources. So top one, we got this is where the code is actually living. So if you're familiar with GitHub, you know what to do. If not, go to the link. There's so much stuff there, it can be slightly overwhelming, but everything is there. And if you're familiar with how plugins work currently, and themes and all that, you're going to be in for a bit of a shock, because React is very different. There's also a handbook. This handbook is super helpful. Covers a whole lot of different stuff, and it's written in plain English so that mere mortals can understand. And then there's the State of the Word. There's one from WordPress founder. This is State of the Word talk in 2017, where the WordPress founder goes through his actual vision for WordPress. Really handy. The long-term vision is the one that I was talking about with the virtual reality and all that, from a VR expert. And there's actually a new theme that's been coded for Gutenberg, and it comes with a plugin that has some pretty cool example blocks that really extend it quite nicely. That's free, which is even better. So something to play around with. But make sure that you set up a new WordPress site, put on the plugin. It's most of the way there, so don't put it off for too much longer. Are there any initial questions? Otherwise, I'll jump into the quick demo of what it looks like. Yeah?
Do you know much about how much this change will impact advanced custom fields?
Advanced custom fields, I'm not sure. But what I've heard, the research, this was before they made the changes to the meta boxes, was that advanced custom fields is kind of going to need to innovate, shall we say. The ACF is one of the biggest outcries that people are like, but I need this. There's going to be ways of doing it, but it's going to make a massive change.
The content you already have on your website, how will it affect that content? Will that be changed over, or do you have to do something with that manually so that it complies with the box?
So one of the fantastic things that happened yesterday or maybe the day before, now if you install the editor and switch it over, it automatically creates a classic editor block and puts all your content in there. So basically it's safe. So that's a very helpful thing that someone has done. Someone's thought ahead. But then when you start editing from there, it starts to break it apart. Yeah?
Or there will be any more plugins when the new editor comes into effect?
Are plugins still going to be, are there still going to be plugins?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. And plugins are the way to create new blocks or to edit the blocks that are already there. So plugins are going to be huge. They're just going to change quite dramatically.
I know the whole Metabox thing is still kind of new.
Yeah.
But have they got any clue as to how you would implement custom fields and post types and all of that fancy stuff?
The last word on that, and the question was, what's the deal with custom fields, custom post types, that sort of thing. The last word on the custom post types is that they're not going to touch it just yet, but that's next on the shooting range. So this is meant to replace custom post types. So whether they manage to successfully make it backwards compatible, I doubt. I think what's more likely is going to happen based on what I've been reading about it is that they're going to roll it out, not touch the custom post types initially, get everyone that, you know, there was meant to be a nag on installing the Gutenberg Editor with the 4.9.5, the one that was just updated. They scrapped that for whatever reason, because it's not ready. And so they'll probably nag you until you eventually give in and convert your custom post type. But knowing a little bit of your situation, you're in trouble. Sorry. Membership sites are going to be fun. All right. Any other questions? We're going to have a Q&A at the end. But yeah.
Last one. What do you mean by it separates the content from the format? Because isn't that very similar to ACF anyway, where you kind of...
Which is why ACF is kicking up steam.
Yeah, okay. So it kind of almost being replaced.
Essentially, yeah.
Because it was almost like a core thing that was missing in the first place.
Yeah, so it was a core thing, and so they replaced it.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily agree with how they've done it, but it's one of those things you can't make everyone happy. All right, demo time. Yes? Fingers crossed. Not entirely sure how to do it. Uh-oh. Sorry, I'm not very good with technology.
We do the internet, not computers. They're totally different. Ross, do you want that?
I need some.
So I'm going to be operating on, but is that, there we go. It's not on this screen down here, so we had to do it this way so that it would be large enough. All right. So when you jump in, we got logins. So I've got some of the things to show in case people are interested. But you're going to install Gutenberg. It's literally just called Gutenberg. Install that. Once you do, I'm not sure people down the back will be able to see, but right down the bottom there's a thing called Gutenberg, which then has a demo. But otherwise, come to pages, and this is because I was playing around with WooCommerce, which works quite nicely with the new editor, so that's good. E-commerce is difficult enough without breaking. Alright, so this is what it looks like. It's quite different. So one of the things that it doesn't currently have, you can't actually change the permalinks, which is really, really annoying. Well, I was going to code something up about it, but I was busy preparing for this. So yeah, it'll be done hopefully in time for the... kind of important to be able to change it. So at the moment, whatever you set as your initial title is what the permalink is going to be, and there's no way to change it before or after. It's just automatically done. Yeah.
But
there was a whole lot of other stuff that changed recently. So. So then, yeah, see this this button up here that's got all weird code? I fixed that. That was one of the changes that I made, fixing this little. Yeah. Alright, so publish. It now checks to make sure that you're ready to publish, so you can change the date and everything. So I don't know that this is necessary, having that double confirmation, and people are perturbed by it. So let's just publish it. And you'll see on the front end that it pretty much just looks as you would expect. So let's exit out of that. So if you are doing a lot of writing or composing, or you just don't want this stuff in the way, you can actually hide that away just with this, or exit out of it. So when you're editing particular blocks, there's a couple of different ways of getting to it. That's annoying. So you can go up here, there's the commonly used ones, so this will be personalized to your particular use. At the moment it's just standard default stuff. Most of it's going to be under blocks, so it's separated out into categories. This is really cluttered. I'm not particularly happy with how this looks or feels, so if we have any user experience people in the room and you want to have a crack at it, go for it. So there's a whole lot of different blocks that we can use, and this is a new one in here, this classic editor, which is handy. And I'm used to clicking and dragging into position. That's not how it works now. A bit weird, but it is what it is. We do have drag and drop finally. That only came a couple of days ago. So, actually,
just to clarify, this is going to launch in a few weeks.
Yeah, yeah. But it looks quite different. Like the version that is actually under development has made huge steps forward since this one here, which was about 2 weeks ago. So I had the classic editor there. So this is all the stuff that you're familiar with the classic editor. It's probably screwing up because of my computer and connection. Usually this kind of stays up here. If you don't like it, this bar, which is customized to the block, if you don't like it there, you can actually throw it up to the top. Please work. There we go. So that's up the top now. So this is your basic paragraph block. I prefer the stuff up the top just for clarity. Show of hands, do you want it up the top or do you want it above the individual block? Alright, I'll do it above the individual block. Alright, there's no X button to remove it. So you just hit delete. Yeah. There's different ways of doing it, so you can, if you do slash and then just start typing, it then goes down, and there's ways that you can code your blocks so that they show up different things instead of just the particular title. If you're a developer, that's useful information. If you're not, I didn't say anything. So you've got the different headings here. I don't know why there's no H1. I guess they're trying to be more compliant with HTML5. So you don't even have an option to do H1s down the page. You just get this one here. There are use cases where you should be able to. But anyway. So the different headings.
On the right.
Yeah, so, there we go. That's right. Thank you. So you do have it, good. Yeah, all right, so there's ones that trigger up here. There's also ones that trigger over on the side. Let's grab a paragraph block. This is where you're going to spend most of the time, I'm guessing. So there's a couple of quick ones that can change. I should probably put some text in, sorry. Actually, I had some saved. So this has got some markdown if you are familiar with that, that's in there. So let's delete all this and see what happens when you paste. So as you can see, it automatically inserts the particular blocks. This is using the markdown, so it automatically creates your heading block. And I don't know what it did to my... It worked before. Again, this isn't ready. But, so you've got... I don't particularly like how it doesn't allow you to make different sizes within individual, like within a text block. It doesn't matter whether you select it or not. If you make changes over here, it changes the entire block. So I'm pointing over at the right-hand column. So it has drop cap, which I guess some people use. It looks nice, but...
Can you do a HTML block and use a span for it, or...?
You can, yeah. But you really don't want to have to be doing
No.
the workarounds if you don't have to. There's also a slider for text size if you, so it's a little bit more visual, or you can change the size over here. And there's a handy reset button to put everything back. So then you can change the background color for each individual block, which has its advantages, as well as the text color. And if your contrast isn't good enough, it'll actually say, hey, come on, don't be like that. You don't want to design like that.
Can we turn this off so the clients can't change their colours? Am I the only person hacking that? Like, I don't want my clients to be able to change the colour of their text.
In your theme, you can actually set a custom palette for this super easily. There's code for it. Once you set that, I mean, you could set this to just the single color, just set it to black. That'll do that. Yeah. But I like red text.
Is that perhaps for people who may be colourblind, the actual contrast?
Yeah. So there is a great focus on accessibility standards. So yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so one of the accessibility standards does talk about the contrast between your background and your foreground colour, and it is something that a lot of like the search engines will pick up on that in terms of how accessible your site is. So yeah, it is something that is going to affect the searchability of your site as well.
But not just the searchability, just the usability. You want your users to have a good experience. There's a bunch of different things you can do with the block alignment. So you can actually align the block. Last time I tried this, it didn't work so well, so I'm not going to push it. You also have these two wide width and full width, which don't appear natively. You actually have to put some code into your theme. So the reason why I'm using this particular theme, this is the atomic theme that I mentioned in the presentation. This allows you to go wide and full width, and that actually will stretch for the entire container. So if you've got a full width page, then this will actually stretch it right the way across the entire browser, which is something that WordPress has never been able to do. Can look quite nice. So headings, standard stuff. So you can drag and drop, which again is a very new feature. Before you had to click these buttons, which these things kept getting in the way. Anyway. So some of the controls take a bit to get used to. So I just did delete them. So you don't have to, if you're not, you can select the block somehow. Come on. I give up. It does insert these random paragraphs. I'm not happy with the controls, but they're the ones that we deal with. you would think that after all this time of playing with it, I would be good with it, but I don't know. Sorry.
So is there a sort of issue in for that, not having a sort of delete button or something there? Because I can see myself accidentally deleting stuff really easily.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of issues raised about it. No one can kind of come to a consensus about how it should be done. I think it's simple. X block over here.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I mentioned was you can change the type. There should be a way to change it to HTML. It's over here. So in the right hand one, you can switch to edit this as HTML if you need to change that block, or edit visually, duplicate. And we've got this shared block, so you can go convert to shared block and call it whatever you want. Elegant naming conventions. And so then when you come into shared, you've got your shared block here, and it's going to use the icon that you had before. So this is a dash icon, so the standard WordPress ones, programmers, you can access that, or you can actually change it to SVG, if you need to know that. So we've got these two shared blocks, so when you click into them, you'll see the name of the shared block. So if we were to change this one, what happened? What did I do? Oh, that's good. I didn't have that before. I don't know if you noticed that, but when I saved this one, it updated this one. So that applies to whether you've got across different pages, all that kind of stuff. So you could have a shared image that's your banner, ad, I don't know, like a sale or something like that. Updated in one place, does it everywhere. So that's
Can
handy.
you do saved blocks as well as shared blocks? So, like in Beaverbuilder, you can have your global rows, for example, and then you can have like just a regular saved one. So let's say I wanted that, but I wanted to alter it slightly, but not have it alter all across the site, but I wanted to have it sort of as a quick.
So like a
block.
template block?
Yeah.
Yes, there's ways of doing that. I'll get back to you with the example once I turn on the Atomic plugins. So that's a very cool feature. All right. Otherwise, you got these images. Actually, the one that I wanted to show you was the cover image. So it really can get a bit messy, but what are you going to do? So, cover image. Just tell me how to upload them. Yes. These are just random stock images. So, this cover image. I have done something. Ah, there it is. I wasn't clicking in the right spot.
You need a mic holder for you.
So then this will be good for header blocks or for content blocks within the thing. Once you have this full width, you can have your text in here the way it was before. It doesn't do headers, which is the way that I prefer to do it, but it at least does text, and you can change, you can turn down the background, which makes life so much easier. And I mean, you can do some basic formatting in there currently, but otherwise you would add a CSS class. Unfortunately, there's a lot of stuff that the answer is going to be add a CSS class and fix it in your theme. is that they're really trying to separate the two out. So all the styling done in the theme and everything else, like the heavy lifting done in the block. But this cover image is a nice thing. Or also if you've got, if you just want text on the top, it saves putting it into Photoshop and editing it that way. Also allows you to have actual text, which can be good for some things, SEO, etc.
Can you make a parallax image background?
There's no parallax at the moment, though I'm sure someone will code a plugin that allows that. I highly doubt that that will be in the core. But it should be easy enough to code, I reckon. Another one I like is this list thing. Get rid of some of this. It was just a select all, delete. So, listicle. They actually sit in a separate list block, which can make life interesting as opposed to a paragraph block. So watch for that with your styling. I think that's pretty much it. Embeds, I'm not going to show it because I don't have internet connection and no one wants to watch me set up a hotspot. But the same as YouTube right now, if you just post a YouTube link into WordPress, it automatically does the embed wrapping. Same thing happens here. So if you post, and it happens with Twitter, with I think Facebook status. Haven't tried Facebook status, but it's in the code. But Twitter tweets and YouTube, Vimeo, anything like that, if it's embeddable, you just put the link in, it'll automatically do a wrapper around it. And for everything else, there's a whole lot of embeds in here, which I don't think that they're actually going to be there on the final one, simply because they're just namespaces for this embed block. It really is just the embed block. These are just fancy stuff that references the embed block. So, just want to go through really quick what you can expect in terms of custom plugins. So I just activated that particular plugin, and now when you come into blocks, so they put theirs into the common blocks category, and this was the one that you were talking about. So the automatically, and all you can do is add the information in there, do what it tells you to do. You can't click and drag, you can't move things around. This is going to be particularly good for client stuff. So this is more on the custom plugin stuff. There's going to be a lot of different variations on this. I'm sure there'll be plenty of tutorials on how to create this. There'll probably be some plugins that allow you to easily create these ones for yourself, but it's a massive improvement to the core. That was the profile blocks. And as you can see, like, they just reference it, A/B testimony or whatever. You can easily do that however you want. So spacer, basic stuff, but it does extend it quite nicely. And this is the sort of thing that you can expect from places like Beaver Builder. The guy behind Beaver Builder did a post where he said that this is exactly the sort of thing that he was looking at implementing with Gutenberg. So, good stuff.
So, question, you were saying there were no styles in the Gutenberg, so if all of these blocks, would we have to maintain like a separate style sheets for our theme? Like, basically need a base theme with all of these different layouts that a client could potentially have.
Yes. So the question was, with all these extra stuff, if we're not going to have access to it within Gutenberg, are we going to have to maintain all that stuff ourselves for our clients, whatever? And the answer is yes. But it's not that different from what a lot of us do with the themes that we use. Some of that has the custom coding that does this sort of thing, or the page builders or anything like that. I mean, for example, a contact form. It's exactly what we do with that. So it's going to be different. I think it's going to be better eventually once things are fixed.
Good call, Mike. We're going to hold you to that.
It is going to be better. And you're not going to have a choice. The accordion blocker I've also played around with. That's quite nice. Alright, so quick show of hands, because there's no point going into this next part if I'm pretty much almost finished. Who uses page builders? Anyone? I'm going to go through the next part, actually. Do we have anyone that doesn't use something like Divi? Anyone uses Divi? Alright, okay. But Divi's going to be a fun one. So I've got Divi, I've got Avada. These are installed and you're ready to go. Divi, Avada.
Beaver.
I've got Beaver theme, generate press. Yes.
Bootstrap classes in the same category as the
Bootstrap class is going to be an interesting one. There's actually been a lot of debate on whether this should just be built on Bootstrap, because everyone uses Bootstrap and it's awesome. You don't like Bootstrap? Alright. That's why. Someone had a casting vote. Alright, I'll get them. So for the themes and page builders that are broken, all of them, the fix is going to be to install this plugin. It's on the repository right now, called Classic Editor. And this is actually the fix that Matt Mullenweg said to use, so that's the one that's going to be supported for now. And it really is going to be a for now part. So you just activate that and all is well in the world, sort of. So let's deactivate Tonic. Video. I forgot Top Activate. Yeah. Good enough. Beaver Builder works exactly the same as it did before, with or without the classic editor. I do have a license. Can't be bothered doing it again. Let's get to page. So when you have the classic editor installed, it's going to put one up here, and it's also going to be in the back end. So when for all of your page builders, if they don't have, like Beaver Builder does up the top, then you're going to come back and it's going to be exactly how you saw it before. So with Elementor, you have the plugin here, Visual Composer, Divi, they all work the same way. So
even if we're not using the classic editor, sort of once Gutenberg releases, if we install it, we can still edit our panelings here? You're welcome.
Possibly. Whether it allows you to, once it's rolled out, who knows, because at the moment it's just a plugin as opposed to core, so that might be a way, yes. Very good, Joe. So, I like it.
No, just a pretty face.
Alright. So then switching between the two, like that. Not sure what I was trying to do with that. So then Beaver Builder still works exactly the same as it did before, and this is how it'll operate afterwards. Eventually the plan for Beaver Builder is to have some of the functionality from Gutenberg come in and then to make the rest of that available. I
So
think the
automatically
icons aren't
turns-
showing because of my internet.
So
Sorry.
it automatically sort of shows the blocks inside Beaver, it converts them to blocks inside Beaver.
That's what will happen eventually, so keep an eye out for that.
You can connect to Flux Guest if you want to connect to the Wi-Fi. Yeah. Just have to put in your email so you get spammed forever.
You put in anything.
Put mine in if you want.
Put, I like cats. Put in anything at all.
Cats are pretty great.
Perfect.
Sorry for whoever has that email. I do feel you deserve it if you have that as your email. Good to go? No? Yes? Alright, so I did say before you've got down the bottom left-hand corner, you've got a new entry that says Gutenberg. There's one called Demo, which is really worth checking out to play around with. It just creates a new post with a whole lot of, hang on, the internet's working. So it shows off all the different stuff that's in there, so you can play around with different sizing and all of that. So some of the layouts are actually not too bad. Alright. I'll just go quickly through a few shows of hands for show of hands. Divi, because that seems to be quite popular. With good reason. I hate on them, but I like Divi. In the right use case. Sorry. So before I jump into the editor, I'll show you what it's like without this classic editor. 2 seconds, 3, 2, 1. Oops, should have just gone out new, but anyway. Sorry, we're almost there. So as you can see, there's no place to hook in. This is with Divi active. There's no place to hook it in. So I'm guessing maybe they'll have something on the right-hand side, or possibly they'll have a meta box. It's called a meta box, but it's a little confusing. But a meta box in here that prompts you with switching over. So I'm not sure how they're going to do it, but I'm sure they'll have something in there eventually. So what Divi you should be able to edit here. Use enable. Come on. Yeah. And then there's no way to get into it. It's really, and this is the latest version of Divi. So they're not ready for that, but once, yeah. So this is with the visual editor enabled. It's not going to work. So the fix, enable your classic editor. Enable. refresh this page. And then down the sample page, just hit Edit Classic, and you've got the layout. There we go. And you've got everything the way that you're used to. So that's going to be the fix for now until Divi gets its act together. They're going to have to do some major rewrites. But, so there is a way around it. Do that.
Does the visual panel still work?
Yes.
But only when you've got Classic Editor turned on.
Well, no, even if you don't have Classic Editor turned on, it still works. You just have to throw in this particular string. So if you can remember to copy and paste that one, then it'll still work. Right, yeah. All right. Everything as you knew before. So that pretty much wraps it up. Is there anything else? Any questions? That was
pretty intense.
That was intense.
Yeah.
And now you know why I've been preparing for such a long time.
Yeah.
So, any questions?
Yeah, is it safe for like people to stick with an older version? Like instead of updating the new version of WordPress, can they just stick with the older version, or are they just going to miss out on like security updates and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, that's the thing. You're going to miss out on security updates if you.
Short term, yes.
Yeah.
Wait until you're ready. But long term, you do need to get on top of using 5.0 because it is not going anywhere. It's going to be sticking around forever. So your best bet is to work on it in a development environment, and then you do need to upgrade eventually. You're going to be opening yourself up to security issues.
Do you think that the Classic Editor is going to be improved as a plugin? Because I mean, it's more so
The Classic Editor within the block, or do you mean the Classic Editor plugin?
the plugin.
The time frame that Matt was talking about was towards the end of the year. It's going to start to be phased out. But one of the other problems is that all the plugin developers are going to be pushing ahead, knowing that soon they're not going to need to support old versions, which reduces the amount of work that they have to do. So if you leave it too long, you're going to run into major issues. So it would be nice to not have to do extra work, but that's what we live in.
But it's like with Windows, you get into and you've got all the bugs.
Exactly. Or if you got in really early, you got in before the bugs, and then they messed it up, and then, yes. Yes.
At the moment, you currently have a plugin installed for Gutenberg.
Yes.
Is that going to be how they start rolling it out? It's going to be a plugin installation on your current install, and then at a future point it'll be part of core?
When WordPress 5 rolls out, it won't be in a plugin. So the question was, I've got it as a plugin, but that's simply put into a plugin right now so that everyone can test it and get ready for what's coming, so that there's not a mad surprise and 3 weeks of not sleeping to get things ready. It's still going to be that, because let's face it, we're developers and drink way too much caffeine, but yeah, it's going to be rolled out straight, so it won't be the plugin. Sure.
Tested it with Genesis yet?
I have.
How'd it go?
It works quite nicely.
Brilliant.
Genesis and Genesis Dynamic. So what actually happens is it puts in a, I apologize that I had it set up on my initial one, but I forgot to add the extra plugins, WooCommerce and Genesis Dynamic, all that. But all the dynamic stuff or WooCommerce stuff actually lives at the bottom of the Gutenberg Editor, so that's still there. That's also where Yoast goes, so it actually looks quite nice. It's a very clean interface instead of having all these extra tabs and stuff. So yes, it does work currently already with Genesis Dynamic.
Sorry, another question.
Yeah.
If you do put the Classic plugin on, do you know whether that fixes the issues with advanced custom fields?
I don't know that, unfortunately. Probably should have done a little bit more research
The
based on
advanced fields, the feedback that I've heard so far from the community is that it essentially is going to be a problem. It's going to be one of the biggest problems that developers need to overcome. But that again hasn't taken into account the recent changes. So things have been shaken up a lot over the last couple of days. So I think probably just make sure you're staying atop of that in the community, like on the Slack channels and that sort of thing. And on GitHub, if you're just sort of following what's happening on there, there's a lot of discussion about it. So that's probably the best bet for those of you who are like pretty worried about ACF, because I think most of us have used it, Word developers have used it at some point.
And I apologize, I don't use it as much as I once did. I tend to just custom throw it into the functions of PHP and do it that way. Any other questions? Yes?
This will be a dumb question, I might have missed the point.
No dumb questions.
Where you have like thousands of old posts,
Yes.
what happens to them long term? So short term, I presume that if we don't go with it, then they'll be okay and we won't have to worry. But long term, once the classic editor goes away, is, I guess maybe on the front end in terms of rendering, does anything change as all the posts?
As it currently stands, you'll be fine, simply because it'll pull it into a custom, like the classic editor block, and it'll just kind of sit there if you do nothing. That, from what I'm understanding, that custom editor block isn't going away, it's just the custom editor that's going, so it's being transferred into a block, so those, that would be a nightmare.
The custom editor block's essentially just like an HTML style.
Yeah, it's just a tiny MCE.
So,
block, yeah. Yes?
The speed increase you saw, is
Yes.
that rendering in the browser, or is it delay from first draw, or what was the speed you saw increase?
That was mainly at the start, because it's not querying so much. It's not querying the MySQL database as much. So I didn't go into the Geek side of things, because what's actually happening is most of it is done by comments, and it's essentially handled on the fly, so it doesn't have to keep firing back and talking to the database or talking to multiple different PHP files. So that's why it speeds.
To edit a page. So it's all in the back end. You saw speed increase, or is it certain?
No. The front end.
Right.
So
the front end speed.
yeah, so the front end speed, what the user will experience, based on my testing, it was
Right. Because
was around.
more in React, more in the browser.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. There's more work happening when you're actually setting things up, and then there's a reason why Facebook wrote React, so that they could serve 1 billion people super fast. So it's the same thing with that. So
Did you find with the switch to React whether there's any more page weight served? You're noticing it's faster at maybe frame time. Notice whether there was actually any change in like served assets.
there was a slight increase in the served assets. Possibly just the way that it paints the extra code that's wrapped around it, because it's now blocks instead of just a paragraph tag. So it was a slight increase.
Did they do compile templates and stuff, or is it kind of all just render on the fly?
That's a very good question. At the moment it is all render on the fly, but I'm guessing that there could be some potential for caching plugins to actually take that and paint it a lot quicker.
Yeah, there might also come the theming aspect. If you're going down the theming path, they might start.
It would be a more theming thing, but
It's pretty fast.
a plugin with for caching would actually quite possibly be able to hook in quite nicely to that. Anything else?
So with the current things, you've got your PHP and your whatever your markup's just a big mess. How is that data getting to React now?
Poorly.
Hard question.
Well, the theme is basically wrapping around the content as it is, and so at the moment, all that really is changing is what's inside the framework of the theme. So some themes that do interact, that Most of the time, they're not interacting. Most of the time, it's literally just a wrapper around the content. When you get into membership sites, it's a little different. But as a general rule, it's not going to make that much of an interaction difference. But when they roll it out into the customizer and then into the theme, that's when we're in big trouble.
At the moment, you can just do the content brackets.
Yes.
And the content list, you have to query each individual block and stuff like that, or?
I haven't actually messed around with any of that, querying the content. I mean, it's still WordPress, so there will be a way of doing it. It's not, okay, so this, the developers, this isn't actually built on, like, directly into React. WordPress has a layer on top of React, so if something happens and they need to change it, they can switch out React for something else. So it's a little bit different from React, but it's WordPress React in the same way that it's WordPress PHP. Yes?
So there's no additional CSS or JS files loaded on the front end?
There wasn't in my testing, but I didn't look too deeply into that because those files are almost always done by the theme. So yeah, I mean some of the page builders load JS and CSS, which that's my main quibble with Divi because it loads so many of them. But it doesn't, because the Gutenberg Editor doesn't actually bring in any CSS really. It doesn't
Probably just be a new default WordPress class structure that they supply in documentation.
Most likely.
Particularly for the full width, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, the full width one, there's code. I probably should have added it to the resources, but there's opt-in code for your palette and for the wide. There'll probably be other stuff, but those are the two main things that are in there now. Anyone else? Yes.
Another developer is a user of DBT.
Even better.
I restarted. I was lazy to start.
That's okay.
Missed what was what you presented about that.
Okay, so literally all it was showing how it looked without the Classic Editor plugin, and then once you install the Classic Editor plugin, you get this one at the top, and then you go there, or you can access it from the list of pages. There's one that's going to be called Classic Editor. You just click that, and you get back to what you're used to.
So,
and eventually
Divi.
Divi.
Going to be a lot of problems, or it's quite a safe team to keep. No, I don't.
Most of the premium themes, they're going to be safe because their livelihood depends on innovating and making sure that they're up to date. Most of them aren't yet up to date, but they're probably looking at the speed of the changes. I was saying to John, I think one of my commits was number 6,000, and that was, I don't know, a week or so ago, and it's now already up to 6,700 or something like that. There's a lot of people doing a lot of development.
Changes in the last week to the editor.
Sorry, geek speak. I need to know. I need to learn to speak human. Yeah.
So it used to be a lawyer mic, so we don't expect you to be too human. I have a question for you. Okay, so
John down the back. Jump in.
So what do you suggest the best way to get familiar with the whole thing? Was it still need to download, say, the plugin, but always save it as a draft or a private?
Don't run this on your live server.
So you can head up to when?
Do not run this on your live server at all. It's very much a development thing. Create a new website. Either do it on local, so the way that I've got it set up with XAMPP, super easy.
On the Meetup group and also on the Slack channel WP Perth, I'll throw up a link on, it's got a really easy tutorial you can follow on how to install XAMPP, which is the program that Mike's running it off at the moment. So it allows you to install WordPress locally on your computer. So it's not actually, you don't have to worry about hosting and that sort of thing. That's best way to test it out in a local environment, so you can do it.
Upload that plugin.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
you
then you
take it
install the
back up.
plugin.
Yeah, take it back up of your existing site, whack it onto XAMPP, and then do your testing on that before putting it onto a live server.
And then once WordPress 5 rolls out, you would roll it out on your development one and check that everything's all good. Call someone in a panic when it's not, and then once it is all good, then you know that you're clear to go ahead and upgrade your main site. But yeah, don't expect to be upgrading your main site to WordPress 5 in the first week that it rolls out.
How about Jetpack? Anywhere ready to go? You must have a lot of work waiting.
Yeah, they're so focused on Gutenberg that pretty much everything, WordPress multi-site, the REST API, actually the REST API integrates really well with this. So if you're involved in any API programming, check that out, get up to speed on that. But yeah, Jetpack is lagging, multi-site, it's all lagging while all the resources are committed to this one.
Yep, sure.
Sure.
Is it me now?
Yeah.
So you mentioned that the customizer was sort of the next step after Gutenberg, like the editor is released. So what does that mean in terms of our home pages at the moment, where I know a lot of people have a home page that uses sort of a different template to what they have on their inner pages? So you've got a static home page, you've got a lot of widgets and stuff on there. Is that all going to work the same still for those developers that are not using like a builder or something for their home page?
All those widgets are going to be replaced with blocks. So it's going to work fairly similarly, but it is going to change. And by the customizer, I mean the actual wherever it is. There's a link somewhere where it says customizer, and you change all the back end, it's the entry level theme customization.
Okay.
That side of things.
So
but they really haven't gone into details of what they're going to do with it.
Okay, so from the front end, for someone who, say, has a website that uses like a classic, say, Genesis theme, or I assume like a lot of like the Astra themes and stuff like that, and they've got a lot of widgets and things on their home page, and at the moment they will probably be editing them just by like going to the front end, going to the customize, and then editing their widgets directly in there. That's now going to be done through Gutenberg, or? Yeah,
so the widgets page, that's going to be going.
Yep.
I don't know whether it's going immediately or what, but it will be going in the very near future. And everything that was handled within that is going to be done. Is going to be done through the blocks. What I think you're asking for Genesis, for Dynamics particularly, those are done through the widgets page. All the others are pretty much done with page builders. So page builders, as I've shown, page builders are going to be fine.
So all your widgets are going to be converted to blocks though, right? So the widgets themselves will just become a different block type.
Yeah, well there's actually a widget block type.
Yeah.
So, well actually there's a widget category.
Yeah.
So all those random widgets that we like to click and drag in, those are just going to become new blocks. Anyone else?
Has anyone got a 4.9?
I don't know.
There's been so much talk about it. I don't think it's going to happen though. I don't think it will.
The question was, is anyone going for 4.9? Actually, I'm pretty sure that's how Matt Mullenweg got started. He forked a popular CMS. Forking means that you take what's there and create your own version and then start implementing that. It starts with the initial, but then can vary quite widely. But I mean, that's how WordPress got started, so who knows? But I don't think so. It's simply because WordPress already runs a third of the internet, so there's not that much outrage about it. And once this finally is ready, there'll be even less outrage, I'm predicting. There'll be a few things that people will just hate. And so there'll be an opportunity for plugin developers, theme developers, whatever, to come in and fix them, same as we've always done. Yes? Yeah.
Responsive design is quite clunky. Does it do any better in React?
This is not good in responsive design right now, but a lot of that responsive work is supposed to be done with the theme. I don't like how it's...
Have a better way to do it? No?
Not right now.
No.
So you've got, and that's one thing that there's been a lot of talk about with columns. So you can create columns and have all that niceness, but it then doesn't go responsive and split up the way that we like it to. That's just going to have to be done in custom CSS, unfortunately.
So, same as now?
Exactly. But once the editor is rolled out into the theme, then that's when you're going to get that connection between the two.
I assume for people that are using like Bootstrap, something like Genesis or whatever, where they've got existing classes built in, like your 1/2 and 1/3 and stuff like that, probably just like it had a section there for your CSS classes, so you just throw your 1/2 first and that kind of thing on there, and that should deal with a lot of the responsive issues for you pretty quickly.
Yep.
So
maybe there should be. I guess that's it. No, maybe there should be a plugin that allows that also. Who knows? We'll see. I think that's about it.
Is there any more questions for Mike before he wraps up? Cool. Well, big round of applause to Mike. He's done all the hard work.